Sometimes you just have to tip your hat to the opposing starting pitcher.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I have been podcasting about the Giants since 2015 and hosting the show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And coming up on today's show, we are going to get into what I just said. Sometimes you just have to tip your hat to the opposing starting pitcher. And that was Hunter Greene again. Thankfully, the Giants won their first matchup against Hunter Greene on opening day in Cincinnati with a kind of miraculous comeback in the ninth inning down to their last out. But this time, Hunter Greene just was dominant. I mean, he was dominant both times he pitched against them, but he was untouchable yesterday. And man, I'm looking at his FanGraphs page and the Stuff Plus numbers. There have been tweets after the game about him and just basically saying, about the quality of his stuff, which is kind of quantifiable these days, and just pointing out that Hunter Greene is gunning for a Cy Young award with the way he's been throwing the ball to start the season. He has just been electric. And Logan Webb was electric too. And so it ultimately amounted to a wonderful pitcher's duel. Logan Webb was great. He just wasn't quite as efficient as Hunter Greene, who looked like he was going to throw a complete game shutout in under 100 pitches, which is pretty rare for a guy who throws like 100. He was hitting 100 in the ninth inning with his fastball. Logan Webb went 7 innings, struck out 10, no walks, just 4 hits allowed, no runs. And so Logan Webb was just as good. He just wasn't as efficient. And so, like I said, and even Webb himself, like I said, you just have to tip your hat to the opposing pitcher. And even Webb himself said that honestly, it sounds weird, but if you're going to lose a game, that's kind of the way that you would choose to lose if you had to choose, is that you just have to tip your hat to the opposing pitcher who dominated them. He was untouchable. I said on my little post-game reaction YouTube short that I don't think any team in baseball was going to touch Hunter Greene last night. I mean, maybe the very best offenses out there, but the Giants fought as well, late in the game against Hunter Greene. And there was also a Jung-Hoo Lee ball that he hit with a runner on base, I believe, that would have been a home run in 19 out of 30 ballparks. It is really demoralizing when you see balls hit like that are caught. It's nice when you see it and you're the team on the mound and catching the ball, but when your own players just absolutely crush a ball that would have been a homer in most major league stadiums, and it's an out, it's just hard to watch. And that happened to Jung-Hoo Lee, but he was able to bounce back. And in the ninth inning against Hunter Greene with 2 outs, he put up a fight. Jung-Hoo Lee, by the way, the number 1 most searched player on FanGraphs right now. He's at the top of the list when you hover over the player search bar. And another good night last night. I mean, he crushed that ball into the gap against Hunter Greene. He had a hit. I suppose he was just 1 for 4, but that ball that he crushed, I'm kind of counting as a good outcome. So on the season now, just for the record, Jung-Hoo Lee hitting .333, 385 on base, 500 slugging, 386 weighted on base average, 392 expected weighted on base average. So he I guess he's had, because that ball that he hit had a very high expected outcome, very good expected outcome. And so did, by the way, Elliot Ramos's hit with 2 outs in the ninth. It had an 890 expected average. In other words, an 89% hit probability, meaning balls that are hit similarly hard at a similar launch angle are hits 89% of the time. And Ramos, he hit that ball so hard that even though the defense was in no doubles defense, even so, if that ball had found a gap or got down the line, or if it had just been a little bit lower and the outfielder had dove for the ball and got by him, you're looking at a tie game because Lee singled off of Hunter Greene and then Matt Chapman worked a walk. So not only did they get the tying run on base, they got the winning run to the plate, and Ramos just smoked it. And so good to see some fight, and they got Hunter Greene out of the game. And then, like, Ramos did everything he could except find grass or the seats with a rocket off the bat. I think it was like 107 miles an hour. So anyway, you just, like I keep saying, have to tip your hat to the opposing starting pitcher in this case. And even Logan Webb said that. And so I don't consider it a demoralizing loss. It's just one of those games where you kind of turn the page and assume that the next day's starting pitcher is not going to be as good. And it's going to be Nick Lodolo, a left-handed pitcher. Giants haven't seen many lefties this year. I guess they saw Lodolo and they saw Framber Valdez. I'm pretty sure that's it. They may have seen another, but I was going somewhere with that. But anyway, where I was going with that was the Giants lost this game because they couldn't score off of Hunter Greene. But in terms of giving up the runs, it certainly wasn't Logan Webb. It was Camilo Doval, who continued to, I don't want to say continued to, but just in the last couple of outings, 2 or 3 outings, he's not been sharp with his command. And his walk rate on the season, now 11.5%. His strikeout rate, just 7.7%. So it hasn't been the smoothest of starts for Doval, even though he had a good first 2 couple of outings. He actually had a good first 3 outings or so, and then lately he didn't walk anybody until his last 2 outings. So he only made it a third of an inning, and he just clearly didn't have it. He hit a batter and walked a batter in last night's game, and it was a game where the pitching and defense really needed to be perfect because ultimately the Giants didn't score through 9 innings. So you can fault a reliever, but really, how do you win when you don't score? But Doval and his command issues, which we saw last year, and it blew up and caused big problems, it's definitely something to continue to monitor. And in the meantime, I would say that he may not be the guy you want to go to in the 8th inning of a tie game, mostly because you don't know if you're going to get strikes. And in a tie game, if you just cannot find the zone, and there's this 3-batter minimum rule, so let's just say after 2 batters, you walk somebody and you hit somebody, you can't just be like, all right, we got to get this guy out of here, because he had nothing in terms of command last night. But you got to stick with him for 3 batters, and it was too much. Eric Miller came in, he gave up a hit, but really it was the runners that Doval allowed on base to start the inning. And his stuff is so good, if he can just pound the zone, then he could get back to the Doval we were used to seeing. So I'm not giving up on him based on a few innings this year, but at the same time, it is kind of ominous given how last year went. And so one thought I had is that Hayden Birdsong, I feel like, is kind of being wasted in the bullpen and not really. I just think he's probably going to move up the chain a little bit, and maybe Doval moves down, or possibly Lou Trevino moves up the chain. I'd really like to see more of Hayden Birdsong if they're not going to use him as a starter or in high leverage situations. I mean, I think they should, because the stuff is electric, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Hayden Birdsong and Landen Roupp, tonight's pitcher, a little bit later on. But first, we're going to get into the new City Connect jerseys that are going to be unveiled and worn tonight. Hope you like the color purple. We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, FanDuel is giving you this offer. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team, the Giants, or diving into player props. And also, of course, the Warriors with the NBA playoffs and all that's at stake for them. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. And to take advantage of this $250 bonus bet offer, I would just look for some lopsided odds and place that $5 bet and hopefully cash in on $250 in bonus bets. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right. As promised, we're going to get into a subject that is kind of, I don't want to say it's not baseball related. It's the City Connect jerseys. The creamsicles are gone and these new ones are in. And if you haven't seen them by now, just open up Twitter or Instagram or probably even YouTube. The Giants are bombarding us with kind of promotions to these new jerseys that the Giants are going to wear on the field tonight. And they're far out, man. They're far out. So yeah, that's a little clue as to what they're all about. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow, we'll be breaking down, I believe, both games of the finale, tonight's game and the finale, possibly, depending on the timing, talking about just tonight's game. So I'm not entirely sure, but it's if you don't see the episode before the tomorrow's day game, then we'll be breaking down both games after the game. So anyway, the City Connects are here and they're far out. They're radical, dude. They're an homage to a lot of different things, including there's like the word psychedelics literally gets used in the description that comes from the chief marketing officer of the Giants, Rachel Heit. So we will get some delicious quotes here that are courtesy of Alex Pavlovich. And just check out the jerseys yourself. I got a bunch of pictures pulled up here. And my first reaction, I don't love the font of Giants. It says Giants across the chest. And by the way, they're going to wear these on Tuesday home games. And I don't know for how many years. They were very good in their previous City Connect jerseys. It's worth pointing out that people hated on first look the previous City Connect jerseys, myself included. So these things can grow on you. It's like everybody hates change, and people hated the Eiffel Tower, and people hated I always forget the name of it, the red and white cell tower in San Francisco, and the Pyramid Tower in San Francisco. Why am I forgetting the name of everything? But people just don't like change. So Logan Webb has a quote at the end, like the players like these, and there's going to be a lot of purple. So I said, I hope you like the color purple. And so there's been a lot of commentary on this color purple and like, it's not a Giants color and this and that. And so why purple? Well, on the Giants Twitter page, they've got a little thing where it says the story behind the purple. So we'll read it to you right here. It says the New York Giants wore violet from 1913 to 1917, a nod to NYU, New York University. Decades later, purple pulsed through San Francisco's counterculture. Now it's back, not as a throwback, but as a remix. And so we'll get a quote from Rachel Heit also mentioning the purple and the decision to incorporate it and how they would never have incorporated a color into the scheme unless there was a cultural or like a tie to the team's history that included that color. And so I didn't know, but you can see like the New York Giants had a purple logo from 1913 to 1917 in some kind of connection to NYU. And so anyway, let's get into some of the quotes. And this courtesy of Rachel Heit, like I said, Chief Marketing Officer, who told NBC Sports Bay Area in an article by Alex Pavlovich, quote, we were really looking for a uniform that could bring together the city of San Francisco's past and present, and honestly, looking into the future. Music, by the way, timeout. It's all about music. And there's like kind of these grooves, or I mean, they're not actually grooves, but they look like grooves of a record that kind of swirl their way through the jersey. And each one is going to be unique because it depends on where the fabric was cut. And so they're not all exactly uniform, for lack of a better word, no pun intended. But they're going to, each jersey is actually a little bit different because of that. And I like that. So she says, music is one of those unifying things across generations, and the city of San Francisco has such a rich musical history. If you think of Metallica, Santana, all the way through to E40 and the hip hop of today. Once we thought that would be a unifying theme, we looked across the city at Fillmore posters, Outside Lands, things like that. When we were inspired by the color purple, we were thinking about Outside Lands, but we would never launch a new color if it didn't tie into our history. And so there, I'm pointing out, like, they only went that route. They wouldn't have gone that route if it wasn't for the history, which I think is cool. I mean, 1913 to 1917, such a long time ago, and speaks to the historic quality of this franchise that you can look all the way back to something like that and throw in a little tribute to it in your 2025 jersey. So Pavlovich writes, to make that connection, the Giants went back more than 100 years to a plaid beige and purple jersey that the New York Giants once wore to establish a connection to New York University, which uses purple as its primary color. And hey, I think purple, by the way, is an underrated color. And let's go a little deeper on that. Pavlovich says the previous City Connects featured a bright orange, but on Tuesdays this season there will be purple everywhere at Oracle Park. So I'm curious what exactly that means. If they're just gonna kind of the lights and stuff, I don't know exactly what that means. But Pavlovich says maybe this is just always referring to Willy Adames wears a purple glove every night. But he also bought customized purple belts for all of his teammates to match the City Connects, which I love. And that's so Willy Adames from what we know about him. So the players are going to be feeling it, because when you actually look at some of the pictures, the top of the jerseys, which is primarily black with this like white Giants lettering, or I don't want to call it, it's not really, it is cursive-ish. Yeah, it's cursive. And what do they call it? Lava lamp like. But the pants and the belts that are like cream and orange, especially the belts, they just don't look right. I think you need purple belts. And so they're going to have purple belts. So Willy Adames bought these purple belts for everybody. And the new lighting system, here you go. I didn't read this ahead of it. I read most of it, but I didn't notice this part. The new lighting system has the ability to feature purple during the light shows on Tuesday nights. The jerseys are certainly a different look for the Giants, and every single one is actually different. There are sound waves incorporated into the design, and because of the way they were sewn, every Giant will technically have a slightly different look from teammates. And Rachel Heit said, each uniform is slightly unique and different depending on where the fabric is cut. And then there's a patch, which is a little glove, and it very much looks like a psychedelic poster. It says glove patch, our iconic outfield glove. So it's the big glove out in left field, remixed with Summer of Love energy. It says this on this little primer on the Giants Twitter page. There's somewhere they mentioned psychedelics. So let's see if it's coming up here. It says the patch, Pavlovich says, the patch on the jersey is meant to be a psychedelic version of the four-fingered glove beyond the left field wall at Oracle Park. The strip on the jerseys is supposed to represent concert posters, and the caps include a lining with icons representing 9 different genres of music, from country to hi-fi. And then Logan Webb, team leader Logan Webb, had this to say. He said, I do think they're awesome. When they got leaked, I was reading some of the comments, or some comments that said people didn't like them, which is funny. But I think once people see us all together and see us on the field, I think they're going to really like them. I like it a lot more than our last one. So there you go. Logan Webb, big fan. Like the players, if you read the full article by Alex Pavlovich, the players played a big role in the design of these. It dates back to even Brandon Crawford having an influence when he was playing. So they've been working on these for a long time. And I really like the hat, the bill of the hat. Like it's out there, man. Like it's kind of multicolored, like tie-dye almost, with just orange and purple. But I really like the SF logo on the hat. But I don't know. I'm all about I agree. I think with what Logan Webb said, that when you see your favorite players wearing these and doing things in these, it's going to make you like them, whether you don't like them now or whether you do. That's what happened with the last ones. And on first glance, I don't hate these nearly like I really strongly didn't like the last ones initially, but then they grew on me a lot. And so here you go. There they are. And we'll see them tonight. And I can't wait. So coming up in just a minute, we'll get back to real baseball with Landen Roupp. He's going to be the starting pitcher tonight. Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the behind the scenes stuff going on with what he's working on as a pitcher, and also with Hayden Birdsong. They both get featured in an article on FanGraphs. So we'll get into what that has to say about these two young, promising pitchers in just a minute, and before we do. Today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Just Ingredients. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters, and that's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. My good friend Tim has been telling me all about Just Ingredients, and he loves that they use and prioritize just wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. I know they've got some vegan options, which is what I would prioritize for myself, and I can't wait to try them out for myself. So just visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you will get 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow @just.ingredients on Instagram. All right, here we go. We are going to dive into this article that features Landen Roupp and Hayden Birdsong that popped up on FanGraphs today. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow. It's either going to be, it kind of depends on the game tonight, to be honest. If the Giants have a great game, we'll do our best to get an episode out super early, or as early as possible tomorrow, and break it down. And if it's kind of a downer, then we'll maybe wait for the day game to conclude tomorrow. Giants and Reds finale. Tonight it's going to be Landen Roupp against Nick Lodolo. different than the second game of the season when it was Justin Verlander against Nick Lodolo. And then in the third game, the finale, it will be Justin Verlander against Nick Martinez, and that game's at 12:45. And then the Giants have an off day, and then they're in New York to play the Yankees. So a lot going on here. But let's get into this article by David Loria of FanGraphs, who said the article is titled "Landen Roupp spins a curveball, Hayden Birdsong throws a kick change." And this kick change has, it's not quite at the torpedo bat level. And if you haven't heard of the torpedo bat, then you've kind of not been paying attention. And maybe you blame me if you rely on Locked On Giants for all your baseball news. But the torpedo bat took the baseball world by storm, with the Yankees using it and then hitting a ton of homers. And they were talking about it on the broadcast yesterday with Ellie De La Cruz using the torpedo bat. So maybe at some point when the Giants start using it, we know that some Giants have ordered some. We'll get into that. It's just a different barrel shape than normal on bats. And the other thing, though, that's kind of a buzzword right now in baseball is the kick change. And so we'll get into Hayden Birdsong throwing a kick change a little bit later, like in just a minute. But first, we're going to get into Landen Roupp. So the first line of this article says, Landen Roupp leans heavily on his high spin curveball, and Hayden Birdsong is a purveyor of the kick change. Both pitches profile as plus, which is a big reason the right-handers are being counted on to provide quality innings in their respective roles with the San Francisco Giants this season. Roupp is in the rotation while Birdsong is working out of the bullpen. I'm just going to pause for a moment to say I really hope at some point both of these guys are in the rotation. It's obviously a small sample, but when I've seen what, just the overall numbers and such for a Justin Verlander, like, I don't want to see them just trot him out there every fifth day if he has a rough season just to try to chase wins as he aims for a personal goal of 300 eventually. I want the best pitchers to pitch in the rotation, and if that's Hayden Birdsong, then I want to see him in that rotation. If you got a bunch of other guys coming too, like in the minor leagues, more than we even have time to talk about right now. So Loria writes, the early results have been promising. The 26-year-old Roupp, scheduled to make his second start tonight, made his season debut on April 2nd. The start wasn't great. He was removed with the bases loaded and nobody out in the fifth. Ultimately charged with 3 runs, but his 8 strikeouts were encouraging. I 100% agree. If you look, he struck out 40% of batters, and he wasn't at his best at all because he walked 20% of batters. So if he's got command and you can continue to strike people out like that, then hello. So Loria says 7 of those strikeouts and none of the 4 hits he allowed came against his curveball. He threw his signature offering 34 times in his 83-pitch effort. So almost half the time. Birdsong has thrown 4 scoreless innings over 2 relief appearances. One of his 4 strikeouts came courtesy of the kick change, which he has thrown 9 times out of 53 total pitches. 23-year-old, likewise, in his second big league season, has primarily attacked hitters with his high-octane fastball, or heater, 56.6% usage. The stories behind Roupp's hook and Birdsong's changeup: he broached the subjects with the right-handers in Giants camps shortly before the start of the regular season. So Roupp said of the curveball, I've thrown it my entire life. All that's really different is that I'm getting stronger with more mobility and learning about the metrics. In college, we didn't have metrics. So learning ways to make it move more and spin harder, Learning and growing into my body has made it a lot better. For me, having confidence in it is the biggest thing. So then it gets into how he was a 12th round pick in 2021. Again, kind of Giants underrated drafting and developing here. Roupp spun his curveball at 3,056 RPM in his April 2nd outing, comfortably within the 2,900 to 3,100 range he described to me. Roupp also said that he gets about 19 to 22 inches of horizontal movement and something like negative 11 vert. So welcome to baseball lingo 101. Negative 11 vert is like, I think, inches of drop that are beyond what you would expect from gravity. So induced vert, I think, when he's executing properly. So there you go. Timing is key. When he's out of sync with his delivery, it doesn't come out of his hand exactly as he'd like. Picking up a baseball, Roupp showed his two-seam fastball grip, rotated it slightly, explaining that he throws the curveball just like a two-seamer, but with snap. Curveball is pretty slow, said Roupp, averaging 77.4. That is pretty slow. The speed differential between that and his fastball is a big part of its effectiveness, Roupp said. As for its usage, he threw the curve 41% of the time in his first outing, slightly less frequently than he did last year, 44% of the time, with the caveat that one game is nowhere near a large enough sample to determine what a pitcher's usage rates will be. So Roupp said, coming through the minor leagues, they were telling me I was throwing it too much. That was more about developing my other pitches, though. But while I might throw it 40% of the time, I do think I'm going to lean back a little bit now that I have the changeup and the cutter. The changeup was new last year and the cutter this year. I want to implement those and get people off my curveball so that it's even more effective at the big league level. And for Birdsong, he says, quote, I have a high vert heater with pretty good velo. Yeah, no kidding. He throws mid to upper 90s. High vert meaning the opposite of the curveball. So Birdsong's induced vertical break is basically like the fastball doesn't sink as much as you would expect just with gravity. So that's, high spin. And then he says, my curveball is the opposite of my fastball in that it's just straight down. So the fastball kind of jumps and the curveball goes straight down. It's negative 15 vert when it's good. My slider is kind of in development and is more of a cutter. My changeup is just my changeup. I started throwing it last year and it's developed into one of my better pitches. And then Loria says that would, of course, be the kick change. The right-hander supposedly learned it at Tread Athletics, except that's not true. Birdsong explained that while everybody says that, he's never been to Tread, nor has he talked to anyone who works there. He simply watched a Tread video, then began experimenting with the grip the following day. He said he started playing catch with it. This was in spring training, and I'm not sure I can even remember who my catch partner was. Again, a 6th-round draft pick in 2022. Seems like good value to me. He says it might have been Spencer Bivens, but my changeup had been horrible the year before. It was basically just a bad fastball. 15 vert, slower fastball. That's all it was. I needed to find another grip, one that wasn't a splitter, and I didn't want to mess with one of those, so I started looking up videos, and that one popped up. So his previous attempts to find a quality changeup had all failed, but when he saw the kick change, he thought, let's try it. To his knowledge, he had never thrown one under 9 vert, and that's a quote. All of a sudden, he had one that was close to 0. So it was dropping more, is what I take that to mean. So 9, it was only, or dropping less? I don't know exactly how to read into that. The first coach was Garvin Alston, who he said, I was throwing it and it was tumbling. So I'm guessing dropping more. It was doing what I wanted it to do. I told Alston that I'd thrown a changeup in the bullpen and it was negative vert. He goes, no. Then he was like, let me go take a look at the data. I asked him about it the next day and he said, keep throwing it. So there you have it. Birdsong, let's see. He says as Davis Martin and Matt Bowman explained here at FanGraphs last September, the pitch Birdsong is now throwing has a close cousin relationship with the better-known split change. While the name is new, the pitch itself really isn't. And Birdsong said, I saw the video and called it a spike change. I showed the grip to somebody, I forget who, and he was like, yeah, there are some guys who used to throw that. It's called a kick change. All it is really is that you're kicking the axis of the ball. Whatever you call it, it works for me. So there you have it. Some deep dive on Landen, Roupp, and Hayden Birdsong, both of whom underratedly, drafted and being developed, and I think have really bright futures. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow breaking down either Game 2 or Games 2 and 3 of this series against the Reds. Hopefully the Giants can get back on track after their loss last night. For your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.